YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with another free agency signing grades video. Got a bunch of these on the channel. It's been a few days since we've done one of these, but we got quite a few signings that recently came up. Some guys finally starting to come off the board. So quite a few to go over, and I'm going to grade them like I did with a bunch of all the free agency signings actually. So you'll find those in a series of videos. I'll put the playlist link down in the description in the comments. We're trying to get our subscriber rate here up on both of our channels, the Goat House and the Goat House Plus. You find a link down below for that Goat House Plus channel. Please subscribe. Full NFL content. Going to cover the draft fully as well, live on day one of the NFL draft right here on YouTube. And then there's our Twitter. It's a must follow. Breaking news, reaction to the news, always talking football, giving my thoughts, answering any questions. So that's a must follow there. And then you'll find a link down below for everything you need, including our podcast, 5 episodes out. We're on Apple and we're on Spotify. Check it out. First signing, we'll talk about Robbie Anderson. Was kind of one of the bigger receivers that we're going to get signed and end up did getting signed here by the Carolina Panthers, joining Matt Rule, his former coach at Temple. So that's pretty interesting. I figured the Jets end up getting him back, but another thing I figured is I figured he would get more money, a lot more money. I was a little worried about it. I was kind of planning ahead. Somebody's going to get, I heard he's asking around $15 million. Somebody's probably going to give him around $14 million a year, 13.5. Maybe it's a little much for a pretty solid receiver. Has some injury concern, slight injury concern I'd call it, and then there's a draft class is pretty good. But actually sits around for a bit, gets a 2-year, $20 million deal with the Panthers. Who I think needed a receiver too. People talk about Curtis Samuels receiver 2. No, I think that's a receiver 3. I think that's what he will be. That's what he is here. So for the Panthers, I'm actually going to give this an A. I figured I wasn't going to like whoever signed Anderson because I thought it would be overpaid, and it was not overpaid. $10 million per year is a pretty good deal. That's an A for the Panthers getting Robbie Anderson. Moving on to the next signing here, we got another Panthers one. P.J. Walker signs with his former coach, Matt Rule, and joining the Carolina Panthers. This is a 2-year, $1.5 million deal. There's some people out there that are a little too hyped on the XFL play, and I would call him the XFL MVP, even though there wasn't an MVP. But there was some people kind of getting a little too hyped on it and now saying he's going to start over Teddy Bridgewater. I'd say slow your roll, not even just a little bit, a lot there. Teddy Bridgewater's the starting quarterback. He's the better quarterback. But I do like P.J. Walker. I actually liked him out of Temple as well. And for a 2-year, $1.5 million deal for it to be a backup quarterback, I think that's fantastic. I'm going to give it an A+. I mean, that's a hell of a deal. Guy with some upside. He knows Matt Rule. He's going to be familiar with the scheme there. And it's, there's really not a whole bunch of risk in that one. I'm going to give it an A+. Next signing, we got a lot to get to here. We got Ndamukong Suh recently re-signed with the Buccaneers, 1-year, $8 million deal. And, right off the bat, I'm going to give it an A. I thought that was kind of a must for the Buccaneers to get Suh back. They had a top-tier run-stopping defense last year. And it's more than their D-line. Their inside linebackers are pretty damn good as well. But, pairing Suh with Vita Vea, I think is pretty crucial, and I thought it was big time for them. It was crucial to get him back. 1 year, $8 million, about around where I expected, but it needed to be done. We know he's a good fit. We know he's a good player. That's an A for me for the Buccaneers. And then we got Broussard Pearman, speaking of the Buccaneers, goes to the Jets. So the Jets lose Robbie Anderson, and then they gain Broussard Pearman to kind of maybe take his spot. Maybe they're still looking for, I'd say they're definitely still looking for that receiver one, potentially the draft. It's a good draft class to need a receiver one, honestly. Pearman, I like Pearman. He showed big-time improvement last year. Big-time improvement. Kind of looked like a bust, was overdrafted at one point. Was it the offense? You could say that, like to air it out a lot there in Tampa. But he just everything about his game just looked like a different player, So I do like Pearman. What I don't like here is that they couldn't sign Robbie Anderson for $10 million a year, but they could sign Pearman for $8. I know that is a difference. Every penny counts, but it just still seems a little odd. They definitely needed a receiver, though. There's some upside with Pearman. I'm going to give it a B. Don't love it. I do like Pearman, but there's some confusing, I guess, things in there about that one. But I still like Pearman. It was a big need. Even if they could have got one in the draft, they still will. It was still a need in free agency. So I give it a B there for the Jets. Then we go on to Eli Apple. Apple gets a 1-year, $6 million deal. I'm giving this one a C. I'm not in love with this one. Apple hasn't played too well, but that's not really my problem with this one. He's still young. He can get better. He's a corner that can play. That's really not my problem here. My problem here is I think when I think of the Raiders corners, I think kind of go big or go home with that position. I think I got a long list of corners that are kind of like Apple already. I think Mullins, their number one for right now. You could get better there. Apple could be their number 2. They drafted Isaiah Johnson last year. I mean, they got a number of corners in there. Maybe a couple of them are slot corners. I just think you didn't really need another corner that was kind of borderline going to start. You got plenty of those. 1 year, $6 million. Yeah, it's not super expensive, but I don't really see why this was super necessary or anything. So I give it a C. And then we got Nelson Agholor, who the Raiders gain, receiver from the Eagles. So, yeah, a couple Raiders deals we're going to go over here. 1 year, just over $1 million. So, low risk, high reward here. Potential high reward, I should say. Kind of like the same thing I just said about the corners. Like, the Raiders got guys, they got Renfro like this, maybe more upside because he was just a rookie last year. They need number 1 receivers. They kind of got the guys in place already. So, for that, again, it's a little confusing. But I do think Agholor is a little better than people kind of make him out to be. He's nothing special or anything like that. I'm not saying anything close to that. I'll give this one a B because it was a cheap deal. But again, it's kind of need to go big or go home with that receiver position there, just like the corner position. And then we move on to another Raiders deal. Marcus Mariota, 2 years, $17 million. Former second overall pick goes to the Raiders. We know Mayock likes him. They do have Derek Carr in there as well, which we expect to be the starter, but wouldn't really shock me if Mariota started games this year. I like this one. I like this one a lot for the Raiders. I'm going to give it an A. I think Mariota still has upside. We see his second year in. You don't just have that type of season and just for a fluke, just out of a fluke season. So I think he has something in him. Yeah, has had some injuries, maybe some nerve damage, actually a little scary, but he's able to play. I think the Raiders could bring a little extra out of him here. I think 2 years, $17 million to me. Yeah, it's a little pricey for a backup quarterback, but for Marcus Mariota that I view as, could start, I don't think that's pricey at all, really. So I like this one for the Raiders, 2 year, $17 million, and that gets an A for the Raiders. And then we go to another quarterback, Brian Hoyer, cut by the Colts, signed by the Patriots. We know he's familiar with the Patriots. Belichick and that McDaniels in that offense. We know he's familiar. We all kind of figured he would go back to the Patriots. 1 year, $1 million. So, yeah, not a lot of money spent there. My problem is, that's all the good things that he's familiar with the offense. 1 year, $1 million. Just over $1 million maybe. My problem is the Patriots, I am kind of, it works out for them a lot of time, but it's kind of annoying when they're like, just stick with their own tree, just go get better. Just go get better. I don't expect right now Hoyer's just maybe the starter between him and Stidham. I would prefer Stidham. But it's just kind of, I don't know why they mess around with this stuff so much. I wish they would just go out and get, because are they going to get a quarterback? Are they going to get a for sure starter? Because then they got Hoyer and Stidham sitting there. So I don't know, I'll give it a B. Like, I don't hate it or anything, but don't love it either. So I give the Patriots a B for the Hoyer one. The Vikings earlier today actually signed Tajae Sharpe, receiver from the Titans. They traded Stephon Diggs. They needed more receivers. The depth or that receiver unit was pretty rough. So as of now, I'd see Tajae Sharpe as receiver 2. Bissy Johnson probably receiver 3, but they are going to go into the draft and get a receiver 2. So I think Tajae Sharpe's a pretty damn good receiver 3, young receiver, pretty good route runner. I saw this deal and the contract details weren't coming out, and I was kind of predicting around maybe $5.5 million 1 year deal. And then the details come out, and it's a $1.5 million max. Only thing guaranteed is under $700K. So, I mean, I don't know how the Vikings pulled that off. I think maybe he wanted to play there because he knows he has a legit shot, to be receiver 2. So they kind of stole Tajae Sharpe here. I'm going to give that one an A+. Was surprised. This isn't a huge, impactful deal or anything, but just by that contract details, just Vikings look kind of cheap there. But it's a steal in terms of the contract. So I'm going to give it an A+ for the Vikings there. And then we got Tyler Eifert here going to the Jaguars. 2 year, $15.5 million. Here's the thing with Eifert. I think Eifert, is a good tight end. I think he's always been a really good tight end, honestly. I think if he's healthy, it's a big if. That's the problem. I think it could be a top 10 tight end. I think at some point, maybe 3 years ago, if I said if he was healthy, I would easily call him a top 5 tight end. So he can play, very dangerous in the red zone, can block. Signing a 2-year, $15.5 million for a guy that has I hate saying it, but has a chance to get hurt. So that's kind of the downside. The upside is the Jags need a tight end. They've been missing one like this. He's good. I think he's good if he's healthy. For the most part, was healthy last year. So that's the good. The confusing is the Jags. Are they in rebuild mode or are they not in rebuild mode? Like what? Everything's kind of. I didn't really think so at first. I thought they were kind of in retool mode, but then a bunch of deals told me rebuild mode, and now they sign Tyler Eifert, a veteran tight end with some injury concern, 2-year deal. So it's a little confusing. I'm going to give it a B. I like Eifert. I like the fit. They have the need. But yeah, it's 2-year, 15.5, has the injury concern. They're kind of dipping their toe in the rebuild or winning now. I'm not really sure. So I'm going to give it a B there. And then recent one, Vonn Bell goes to the Bengals. Strong safety from the Saints. They're going to pair him with Jesse Bates there, who I like a lot. Young free safety from Wake Forest. I was high on him out of the draft. He's a playmaker back there, but needs some help. That secondary was rough last year, very rough. He was pretty much the only one out there, it felt like. William Jackson I like as well. So they had Vonn Bell. I think it's a really good pairing for Jesse Bates, strong safety there. Will play in the box a lot while Jesse Bates plays the free safety. So I really like the pairing. I just really like the duo, like the pairing. And then looking at the deal, it gets around 3-year, $18 million. So that's actually a little cheaper than I thought he would go for too. Right around, pretty close to where I thought. But that on top of, again, just like the fit. He's very young, so he's not going to play outstanding this year. He's going to get better. And just on top of all of that, I'm gonna give it an A+. I like this one a lot. For the Bengals, for Vonn Bell, makes a lot of sense there. So that gets an A+. Moving on to a few more signings real quick. All good grades on this page. You love to see that. The Eagles signed Nickell Robey-Coleman, who's a slot corner from the Rams. So the Eagles getting that secondary better. 1 year, $1.3 million deal. I thought he would get more than that. He's not not going to be this crazy impact, but he definitely makes the secondary better playing in the slot. And there's a shortage on slot corners out there in the NFL, and he's a pretty solid one. That's an A+ deal right there. A lot cheaper than I thought. And the Eagles getting better in the secondary. The Jets signed Jordan Jenkins, 1 year, $5 million. That's their pass rusher. Not a guy that's going to make a giant impact, but was pretty productive for them last year. It's a cheap deal. I give it an A. The Ravens signed Jimmy Smith, their veteran corner. Always been a big fan of Jimmy Smith's game. Always a very good all-around cornerback, in my opinion. Getting up there in age. Has some injury concern, but I thought another team would pay him a lot more than $6 million. That's an absolute steal there. 1 year, $6 million. It's an A+ for the Ravens. The Saints extend Janoris Jenkins, restructure. I thought he was a cut candidate because his cap hit was going to be something ridiculous this year, even though I still think he can play. Maybe not the same corner as he was a few years ago. Definitely still think he can play. Definitely think the Saints need his his talents out there. So they really cut that cap down. They signed him to a 2-year, $16.75 million deal. And then the most the cap hit is, front loaded there for this year. That's an A+ deal. They saved the cap space. That's why they're able to sign some of those other guys we kind of didn't expect them maybe not to be able to do. And they still have that corner there. So that's an A+ deal all day. The Raiders signed Malik Collins, 1 year, $6 million. Still young, still a lot of upside. The defensive lineman from the Cowboys. I'm going to give that one an A. And the Redskins signed Thomas Davis. Cheap, low-risk deal. Familiar with the defense with Ron Rivera. And they could use another guy inside. He's not going to be playing on every down because they do have some other solid options. It's a cheap deal. It's another A there. And we know it's a fit. So, you love to see all those good deals here on this page. A lot of steals there. But that's going to do it for this one. Again, we have a bunch of videos like this grading all the different signings around the NFL. So if you haven't seen any of those, go check them out. Put a playlist link in the description. There's all kinds of videos for that. And plenty more free agency and the NFL draft. And then in season, we got you covered as well. So please subscribe to both of our channels. Follow us on Twitter. Check out that podcast. This is going to do it for this one, though. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.